Hello, my name's Jason. I'm from Forset here in Tbilisi, and today I basically just want to talk about open data. Not the process of analyzing it, but just getting it. And at Forset, we do communications with data. So I thought we would start with some fun facts about open data. The first one being that the first Freedom of Information legislation actually came into law 250 years ago in Sweden. So we've actually had freedom of information for over 250 years now. But during this time, there have been just over 100 countries that have passed similar legislation. And now this process has not been easy, but there have been many positive effects. One of them being public sector efficiency. Obviously, data's out there, it's more transparent, and the government has to be more accountable. Very nice. Public participation. They take the data, they use it, and they play with it, they have fun. And then lastly, new services, jobs, and profits. Innovative stuff that could not have happened if this data did not exist. And as an example, in the EU in 2016, it's estimated the market size of just open data was 55 billion euro, just by releasing data. And in that same market for the EU in 2016, there are 75,000 jobs. So just because people are releasing data, there's all these positive benefits. And I just want to say, I'm a benefit of it, so thank you for releasing your data. But getting this data from the governments is not easy. I mean, obviously, it's been 250 years. Only 100 governments have done it so far. And so in this process, development agencies and NGOs have been very valuable in the fight with the governments to encourage them very nicely to release their data. And again, I work with these agencies, these organizations, and I've seen over time that yes, the government has valuable information, but so do these organizations. They do surveys, they do research, they do measurements of all this different data at the local, community, national level, all these different levels, all these different types of data, whether it's like children, health, whatever you can think of, these organizations have the data. And so one day I kind of had the thought, if these organizations are fighting the governments to get their data released, should these same organizations follow their own advice and release their data to the public too? It seems logical, but it's actually just, it's not happening. To be honest, some organizations do release their data. They're typically the big ones, international ones, but in the world, there are estimates that there's about maybe 70 development agencies, tens of thousands international NGOs, and millions of local NGOs. All these people have this data, but they don't have the technical capacity or the resources to actually release their data. But some do. So then what about the ones that do not? How do we actually enable them and allow them to release the data and to put it out there into the wild so that all these other people can benefit from it? There are numerous possibilities, and today I just want to focus on one aspect, and that's donors. Many NGOs exist because donors give them funding to do some specific project. And in return, the donors typically ask for two things. One, a financial report. It's basically just saying, what did you do with my money? It's a fair request. The second one is a summary report, like, okay, what happened? What did you find out? And this report is typically what gets published in the media. They have a press release, a nice 30-page report, here you go, all done. And my problem with that is the summary report's just not adequate. There's more you can do with it. And so I have two problems with the summary report. One of them being, nobody reads these reports. I mean, you got 30-page, 60-page, 90-page technical academic document about a specific topic. You live in this age now of social media, you're being distracted everywhere, short attention spans. Nobody's going to read these documents. That's a waste of time. And as an example, the World Bank recently did an analysis of their website where they have all the reports posted online. And they found that 31% of the reports had never been downloaded once, not once. So just think of all the time, the money, the resources that went into creating these reports, and not one person has downloaded it. So again, I'm not a fan of summary reports. So the second part is you have to do a summary report because it's impossible to take all the possible data combinations and say, okay, take this data point against this data point, maybe filter it by this, and write about it. That's just impossible. And so you're forced to say, okay, at this time right now, this is what's important. And that's what they write about. And so they have to actually discard some things or just not write about it in the summary report. And to me, the problem with that is, yes, right now, this data point is not important. But something's going to happen. It might be tomorrow, next month, next year. Something's going to happen, and that one data point is going to become extremely important. But if it's not in the summary report, nobody's going to know about it, and they lose out on all the work you've done on it. So to me, the solution is to publish the data. If this data was actually published, in addition to the report, but if the data was out there, people could have found this one data point and used it to tell a story or to help them with whatever is going on at that time. And ironically, when I thought about it, if the donors just ask their clients, release the data, by just this simple request, the donors actually get a better return on their investment because the project actually lives longer than, they have a longer lifespan than when the project funding actually stops. So typically donors say, okay, I'm going to fund you, it's going to last a year, but how are you going to continue this after the year's over? How are you going to continue this project going? And many times it's like, I'm not, or I'm going to ask for more money. There's no clear plan usually. But by simply just releasing the data, it continues to live. It gets a life of its own. Anybody can go and take that data and just do whatever they want. It might be another journalist that, or sorry, another journalist, a journalist that is doing a story on whatever your topic is, and they can use some data points to help them tell their story. It might be a similar organization to you. Maybe they live in a different region, but they can use your data to help them with their cause. Or it could be some innovative organization that's like, you know what? If we take this data, we can create an app that then provides this special service to our community. It's impossible for an organization to know what their data could actually be used for. I mean, yes, they had a specific target, but there's so many different things that it could be used for. And if you don't release it, it can't happen. So just by simply releasing it, the data kind of gets a life of its own, and it continued to grow and just continue well past the funding date. And lastly, the data cannot be lost. If you publish it, it's out there, anybody can get to it. Over my 5.5 years of working with data and communications, I've heard some horror stories of people losing their data. The most obvious, computer crash. Okay, hardware fails, virus, whatever it is, computer crashes, and they had no backup. And so everything's gone. It happens, it's sad. The next one actually happened at a development agency. So big agency that had an IT policy. Somebody leaves, IT gets a computer, they erase it, install a clean operating system, give it back. A great policy. Unfortunately, they didn't back up the data. And so everything the staff member did, all the research, the reports, the data analysis, gone. We're probably talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if maybe not millions of dollars, just because this data was not backed up. And lastly, this is something that I know happens here in Georgia. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in general, many organizations that collect data, they themselves don't have the ability or the capacity to actually do it. And so they hire a collection agency, a data collection agency to do it. And so when they do this, I've heard of two things. One is the data agency says, oh, you want the data? Give me some more money, please, just so I can send you an email with an attachment. And many organizations can't pay for it because they probably didn't budget for it because they didn't know they had to pay extra for the money. But the other case might be is like, say your computer does crash or somehow you lose the data, or you realize sometime later, it's like, oh, if we had this data with this new project, we can do this now. And so they go back to the data agency and say, hey, can I have my data file? They're like, oh, I'm sorry, we have an internal policy. After so many months, we just delete it. So again, because maybe they lost it or they didn't ask for it initially, the data is gone. And it's actually quite depressing when I hear like these organizations tell us this. They come to us like, hey, can you create this story for us? We're like, cool, yeah, give us the data. Like, sorry, I don't actually have the data, I just have this summary report. It's not the same thing. The summary report's only a summary, okay? The data is where the power lives. And it's important for organizations to realize that the data is such a valuable asset. I mean, yes, staff are important, they come and go, but data is like your foundation. If you lose your data, your organization can falter and go. And so, okay. So let's say donors, whomever, they all say, cool, great, I want to publish my data. How? Do I have to do it? Is there a website I have to put it to? Where does it go? Does it have to be searchable? What language? There's lots of things that complicate it. So to me, I don't think we can expect like the individual local NGOs to have to publish the data themselves. If they have a website or something, great. But should we expect them to create a data portal for this one data set? Probably not. They don't have the capacity to do that most likely. So to me, I think it's better to let them focus on what they actually do, their specialty, and then hand it off to somebody else that specializes in data and data portals, putting the data out there. So then the next idea is donors. If the donors are asking for this data, then it makes sense that they could create a portal, have this huge collection of all the data they funded for, and it's just there. It makes sense, and some donors probably have the capacity to do that. But in reality, not all donors have this technical know-how or the resources to maintain this huge pile of data. And so to me, in the ideal world with rainbows and unicorns, I think there should be a new organization created that their sole mission is just to maintain open data for organizations. Their job would be to make it searchable, make it accessible. They would train organizations of how to load it. They would educate people on how to use the data and tell stories. The donors can help be a part of the process, but I think in the ideal world, again, rainbows, unicorns, I think this would be the ideal solution. Just one group whose sole task is to manage the data and make it accessible. Because otherwise, there's going to be little portals everywhere. It's hard to find the data. But if there's just one place, you can go search by country, by topic, by language, whatever it is. It's like a one-stop shop for data, and that would be awesome. So stepping back, yes, this is grand. This is ideal world. But the thing to remember is no matter who it is, if it's you as an organization, a donor, this grand idea of this single data portal, release your data, set it free, let it go into the world and experience the world, talk with other data, create new apps, but just let it out there, let it grow and see from your hard work of collecting this data, what other people can do with your data. Thank you.